started with our next presentation. We're excited to have Vikram here. He's going to talk about, he runs one of the largest rummy sites in India, which is pretty fascinating. I didn't know that existed. Sounds like a great business. He's going to talk to us about what's going on there, and also one of his new games they just launched on Facebook called
Call It Right.
Call It Right.
Thanks. Okay. Rummy in India is like poker in the US, a little known fact, but it's true. We started our business in India back in 2009. I moved to India full-time in 2010 after finishing my PhD. We've had an amazing run. We were cash flow positive in about 15 months. We've been funded, we've raised 2 rounds of funds from Tiger Global, which is a New York-based investment firm. We're very profitable. We've had 125 to 150% growth in the last 2 years. And we expect to see the same kind of growth through the next 2 years. I mean, as our investors like to say, our business in India is literally on fire. About a year back, and in Mumbai, you know, our main office is in Mumbai. We have about 120 people there. And in the last 6 months, we've set a couple more offices, one in Bangalore, one in New York. And that's primarily for our new social casino business. So about a year back, we started looking into the social casino market. You know, depending on whom you hear, the number could be anywhere between $1.5 billion to $2 billion, $2.5 billion in 2013. But what we feel, and when we started looking into the social casino market about a year ago, we felt that the market is kind of saturated with the typical slots, casino, bingo applications. And we basically saw then and continue to see a huge opportunity for content innovation, for doing something new in the social casino space. And I mean literally new. I don't mean taking a slots game and doing some new content around it. So that's where we started. And basically what happened in the second half of 2012 is that our game design team back in Mumbai took an evergreen genre of card games, which I'll talk about going forward, really went to town on it, did some serious surgery on it, and came up with what we think is a really fast-paced, really fun, really volatile wagering-style social casino game, brand new content. But before we talk about what that game is and what we really did, I think it's important to answer the question, why has social casino game succeeded? At the end, we're trying to make a new social casino game. And I think it really, to me, the most important reason that they have succeeded, there are a number of reasons, and I've quoted some of them here, but I think the biggest reason they've succeeded, and this is something I could never have thought of when I was playing online poker, is that the inherent action of betting, whether you're playing for real money or virtual money, is super engaging. And until about a year ago, I used to wonder, and I'm a very avid real money poker player, I used to wonder why people would play for virtual currency. And then I got exposed to this little-known game called Farkle. It's a dice game. It's a really fun game. I think it could do a lot better on Facebook or on mobile. It's a really fun game. I got exposed to it, and I used to play it a lot. And I realized that the emotional volatility and turbulence that I went through while playing that game was not very different in nature from what I went through when I was playing a real money poker game. It was different in magnitude, in the kind of volatility that I experienced and the thrill that I was going through, but the nature of it was very similar. And then there are a bunch of other reasons, the scarcity of virtual currency. Of course, it's a low-cost, low-risk way to gamble. It's socially acceptable. And then the social factor is important. So what is our strategy? As I said, we believe the low-hanging fruit is all but gone. Yes, there's room for new players in the space, but it's extremely competitive. But we feel that the basic factors that make social casinos so exciting can be applied to other games. And so our strategy overall is to take other games and then repurpose them into successful social casino games. And to start with, we started looking at the world of trick-taking card games. Now, I don't know if that terminology is something that's familiar to people out here, but the popular trick-taking card games in the US would be hearts, spades, euchre. For the more elite, sophisticated card player, bridge. I mean, these games, there are literally dozens and dozens of trick-taking card games that are played across the world. I mean, if you go back to the late 90s, early 2000, when Yahoo was the big name in online games, Hearts and Spades were probably some of the most popular card games at that time. We feel that these games are really fun, that they're really easy to learn, but they're not played in a way that makes them conducive to gambling or to social gambling, and that's what we wanted to do. So the particular game that we picked up is called Oh Hell. I don't know how many people here have heard of the game Oh Hell. It's not as popular as Hearts or Spades are, but it does have a cult following. And the way Oh Hell is played is kind of very nicely suited to transforming it into a wagering style social casino game, and I'll talk about it a little bit. So Oh Hell is played usually between 4 to 7 players, and just for illustration purposes, I'll talk about how it's played between 4 players. So there'll be 4 players, and the game runs in several rounds. Each round you'll be dealing, the first round, each player gets dealt 1 card. In the second round, each player gets dealt 2 cards, and so on, and it goes all the way up to 7 cards, and sometimes up to 12 cards, and then back down all the way to 1. And basically, the objective in the game is, let's say a round in which each player is dealt 5 cards. The objective is for each player to say how many tricks or hands they're going to make. The biggest card makes a trick or a hand, and each player has to make a prediction about how many tricks they're going to make. Usually there's a trump suit, and the trump suit will trump any other suit other than a bigger trump, trumping a smaller trump. And the unique thing about Oh Hell compared to a lot of other trick-taking card games is that you have to be exactly right. You cannot say I'll make 2 tricks and make 3. You have to be exactly right. To get points, you have to get the tricks exactly right. And that we believe makes it kind of very amenable to a gambling format. But these games tend to be long. They tend to be very long. As you can imagine, you go 1 cards, 2 cards, 7 cards. Some people play up to 12 cards and then back all the way down to 1. Each game usually will take about 30 to 40 minutes, sometimes even an hour. Not good for an ADD audience that's looking for 2-minute entertainment, right? That's one. And secondly, these games are not inherently volatile. They're not volatile at all. The way the scoring is done, if you make the number of tricks you said you'll make, you get 10 points plus, if you said you're going to make 3 tricks, you'll get 10 plus 3, 13 points. So the difference between making what you bid and not making it is not that much. You're between 0 and 13 at best. You do not have the kind of all-in excitement that you would have in a game of poker, where you can lose millions of chips in a game and make millions of chips in a single game. That kind of volatility does not exist in the game. And thirdly, and this is true for most trick-taking card games, they tend to involve a little bit more skill than your standard social casino game. So these are the 3 challenges that our game design team had. 1, the games were very long. 2, no wagering, and therefore no volatility. And 3, the skill component was definitely a little bit on the higher side. And we saw this. I mean, our game design team, used to invite people from our office every morning to come and play, and we would see how usually the same people would win again and again and again. Like, that's a pattern that we observed in-house while we were trying to design the game. And so these are the problems that we were trying to solve as a design team. And I'll talk through it. But the game that we came up with once we solved these 3 challenges that we had is called Call It Right, as Michael announced. It's live on Facebook right now. It's been live only for a couple of weeks. It's still a bare-bone game. It's really got no bells and whistles on tops, no leveling up, no virals, nothing. It's just the core gameplay mechanic that's out there on Facebook. But it's allowing us to test a lot of things. So now I'll talk through, so this is the game table for Call It Right. It's a 4-player game, and I'll talk through the 3 things, like how did we make the game fast, how did we make it volatile, and how did we reduce the skill element in the game, actually quite substantially. So in terms of speed, I mean, our thinking was, our game design team thought, as far as the number of rounds in a game of Oh Hell are concerned, there's nothing that really binds them together strategically. Like, each round kind of, 1 card, 2 card, 3 cards kind of stands alone as an independent entity. At the end, you kind of total up your score across the 14 or 24 rounds, but they're kind of standalone entities. So Simple as it may seem, but this was the idea, that why don't we just run each round as a game? And why do we have to go from 1 card to 2 cards to 7 cards? Just deal 5 cards. 5 is a number we came about with experimentation, but so basically every game works like that. There are 4 players, and one single game is 5 cards each. Each player is dealt 5 cards, and in sequence they'll make their bid, which is I'm going to make 1 trick or 2 tricks or 3 tricks. And the total gameplay lasts about 2 minutes with everything included, and I'll talk through that a little bit more. But so we basically cut down what is a 40-minute game to a 2-minute game without losing what is really core about trick-taking games, which is that a player is going to try and predict how many tricks he makes, and then has to go and do about gameplay to make those number of tricks. The game retains that core element. It's still as much fun, and it's much faster. The second bit was betting and volatility. And again, here, OHEL's kind of nicely, is very well suited to introducing betting, because, essentially what a person is doing with a bet is making a statement about their confidence or belief in how well they're going to do in a game. Like in poker, pocket aces, I feel super confident, I'm going to go all in, right? The equivalent in this game would be if my 5 cards are 2 of spade, 3 of diamond, 4 of clubs, 5 of clubs, and 2 of hearts, right? Really bad hand. I'm almost certain to make 0 tricks. Like it's very unlikely that I'm going to be able to make a trick. And that's the kind of hand in which in this game somebody would push all in. But just like in poker, when you have pocket aces and you can get a bad beat on a turn or a river, several times it will happen that you will end up making a trick with 5 of spade or 4 of club. And that's painful. And that creates exactly the kind of volatility you want in a game. This guy goes all in, makes a trick with 4 of clubs, and it really hurts. So the way we brought in betting was, after people have finished their bidding, we have a betting round. So everybody bids, 1, 2, 1, 3, whatever the bidding is done. So everybody knows what everybody's bid. And now there's going to be a betting round after that, where basically you're betting on your confidence to make that many tricks. There's some very interesting game dynamics that emerge. I'm not going to talk through that right now, but when people fold, some very interesting dynamics emerge, because suddenly somebody's dropped out that had actually bid 2 or 3, and that changes game dynamics a lot. There's a lot of interesting dynamics that emerge around bluffing. It just gets really, really fun in terms of the core game mechanic. So that was the volatility part. And then the third part was skill. As I said, in the early days, when we started running this game, we saw, at least in-house, the same people would win again and again and again. And we said, OK, that's a problem. The more skill there's in a game, the less likely it is to work, because the lesser skilled players are not going to win enough times. And basically, and this I think in some sense was the smartest thing we did, or at least we think is the smartest thing we did. We'll find out. We said that how much skills involved in this game is really a function of what is the ratio of available to unavailable information. And essentially what's happened here is you've dealt 20 cards, and there are 32 cards that are missing. And it's a tough probability calculation to do, whether, with these 5 cards, how many tricks I'm going to make when 32 cards are missing. To take an extreme example, if I was to actually display all 32 cards to everybody, it becomes really simple to say how many tricks I'm going to make, because I pretty much know all the cards. All I don't know is among those 15 cards, which one is holding which exact cards, but I know everything. So in that case, it kind of degenerates into almost a pure game of chance if all 32 cards were shown to me. So we tried to find a nice middle balance, and we said, why don't we expose 10 cards, right? So this reduces the kind of calculation that somebody has to do to figure out how many tricks they're going to make, and it really worked. So we used to run in-house tournaments, and we used to run them on every Friday, and then suddenly we saw things change. No longer were the same people winning again and again. We had different winners every single time we ran the game, and there was a lot of volatility in the kind of people that won. So that was really it. That's the game as of now. As I said, we have put out. It doesn't have any bells and whistles on top of it, but these are the 3 key things that we did, which we think are potentially applicable to a very wide variety of games out there that can be taken and converted successfully into social casino style games. One, betting is just a statement of confidence or belief in how well you're going to do. In any game, where somebody is going to make a call on how well they have to do, but it should be possible to integrate betting in. 2, the game's got to be fast. I mean, people are always looking for quick gratification, so you got to tune the speed of the game, and particularly the get in, get out process. One of the big problems with a 40-minute game is that you're locked in. You're locked in for 40 minutes, and nobody else can get into that game for 40 minutes. When the game's down to 2 minutes, people can get in fast and get out fast. And lastly, and I think this is critical, and this is probably the most critical in some sense, is making sure that the game has enough of a chance element that, that enough people out there have a shot at winning the game, or at least enough times, kind of like a slot machine game where you just win sufficient number of times to stay hooked to the game. And that we believe can be altered by playing around with the ratio of available to unavailable information. So that's really it. That's the game we've done. As I said, we're on Facebook. We'd love for you to go out and try the game and send us feedback, comments, criticisms, whatever. Thank you.
Why is it so important that there isn't a skill element? So like you in 2004, 2005, I was paying my rent playing online games. That
Okay.
was the demographic, right? So,
Right.
so what you're doing by taking out the skill is shifting demographics, right? So why is that the target?
The goal is to try and expand your target market. So we're not eliminated skill from this game. I mean, over now instead of if before we did the open cards thing, even if you ran like 50 games, you'd probably see the same set of winners emerge. Now also you'll see that, but you'll see that more like over 400 games. So over a fairly long period of time, which is going to be true of poker too, you will see the same set of winners, kind of come out at the top. In fact, we've done some very interesting analysis with Rummy, like some statistical analysis recently on showing that Rummy is a game of skill, but it does turn out over a much longer period of time. But in a shorter period, for somebody who's a beginner, for somebody who's trying out new, all we want to make sure is that the first 5 games you play, you have a good shot at winning at least 1 or 2.
So you think the mean application skills don't change, just change the variance?
Exactly. That's what we're trying to do. That's right. Yeah.
I love that coming up with new designs, and I love that.
Thank you.
Are you happy with how things it's been adapted and the retention? How do you get people to find you?
So we went live a couple of weeks ago. As I said, we're just still a bare bone game. Like I think it's a very interesting, fun game dynamic, and but that's pretty much where we are. So our V2 will go live a couple of weeks after Labor Day, and that's when we'll have some of the other stuff. And we are getting some traffic. We're doing some testing, kind of still in the QA phase, so to say. Out there, the game works well, but there's a lot of tests we're running right now. So I don't have any numbers as of now to share with you on how well we're doing on retention or any of those other metrics. Yep. Yeah.
2 short questions.
Mm-hmm.
I play a game similar to Wizard, similar to the game you got up there. How does the betting work if everybody misses their trick that they bid?
Everybody misses.
Everybody has to bid how many tricks they're going to take out of a 5-card hand. So
Uh-huh.
if everybody gets the wrong number and they're betting, how does that work?
If everybody gets the wrong number, right now we do like a sort of a tiebreaker, like So we deal 1 more card each. So we kind of have a tie-breaking round where we deal 1 card each to everybody, and with 1 card they got to say are they going to make that trick or not, and if somebody gets it right, they get the pot. Otherwise, it goes to the house.
Gotcha. And how are you monetizing this right now?
So we're going to sell chips. So there is a drain built into the system through exactly what you just asked me right now. So there are various times when people don't make their tricks, and the house takes either a significant part of the pot at that time or the whole pot. So there's a drain built in for chips. The other thing we're doing is we have some very interesting stuff around the use of power chips. So for instance, you can use a power chip to change your bid. Right now you can, so after the betting is completed, you feel like you made the wrong bid, or you want to reduce your bid or increase your bid. You can do that with the use of a power chip. The other uses that a power chip could have is you can draw an extra card. So Yes, yes. So chips and power chips.
Okay, I think that's it. We're gonna wrap up. I have one quick question. Given how successful your rummy game was in India, any thoughts of bringing that to the U.S. or is that a competitive market that is saturated also?
No, that's not a competitive market that's saturated. No, there's definitely thoughts on bringing that to India, to the US, particularly New Jersey, because New Jersey's got second highest number of Indians in the US after California. So we definitely see a very sizable, reasonable market in New Jersey to start with, and we're working towards that. We are.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.